que más romantic.
Hello and welcome to Skimo Gold. This is the premier podcast and YouTube channel for ski mountaineering interviews and race analysis. Bringing you today an interview with Catie Friend. You know Catie as the voice of ISMF Skimo on the YouTube, often on their live commentary, and more recently doing live commentary at the Olympics in Bormio in Italy, calling those races to the live fans. If you watch the Olympics, you heard Catie's voice here and there in the background. I really enjoyed hearing from her how that all went down, what the preparation was like, what the vibe and environment were like, and also what it was like after the Olympics for her and the athletes there. So I think you're going to really like this interview. We also recap some recent races, including the Martello World Cup, and we look ahead to what is happening for the remainder of the season here with Skimo. You can find Catie on Instagram at Catie Friend. That's Catie with a C. Also, check out Skimo Gold on Instagram. That's at Skimo Gold. And check out the Skimo Gold YouTube channel, where we have full episodes in video and also a bunch of short videos with clips and highlights from these fantastic interviews from the Skimo world. Thanks, as always, to Camp, the 130-year-old Italian gear brand that has been with Skimo literally since the start. They've also been with Skimo Gold since the start. We appreciate Camp, and if you are looking for real technical gear made by real mountain people in the Italian mountains, look no further than Camp. Also, shout out to our friends at Apex 2100. This is Michael and Nina Silic. You've heard them on the podcast. They have a great camp coming up in Tignes, France. This is April 12th to 16th. Sounds pretty awesome to me. You can check it out on Instagram at high_alpine_mountain_guides. Again, Instagram at high_alpine_mountain_guides. So if you're looking for something awesome to do in France, Tignes is sweet. I've been there for an ultra running race. This is a place where many World Tour cyclists have camps or have houses. It's just a beautiful place, and boy, would it be cool to go there and do some skiing. So please consider checking that out. All right, folks, it is time to roll on Skimo Gold. Catie Friend, welcome back to the Skimo Gold podcast. It is fantastic to see you, as always. It's been a minute here. I think the last time we talked was, I don't know, probably sometime in January. A lot has happened in the Skimo world since then. You've been up to a lot as well, and I'm just really excited to talk. So welcome to the show, and it's good to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you for having me back. I've missed it. It has been a while because we haven't chatted, I don't think, since we did the Olympics preview. So it has been a hot minute, as they say.
Yeah. Well, let's, why don't we start there with the Olympics? Listeners, you know, we've covered the Olympics extensively. There's a bunch of episodes you can go back to. We've had some reflections with Cam Smith and other folks since the Olympics. But Catie, I want to get your take because you were there playing a big role. Tell us about it. What were you doing? How did it go? What was the vibe? What were the takeaways? And what stands out to you now? I mean, here we are, I guess, about a month afterwards. Has it sunk in, and where are you at now?
Oh, well, it was amazing. It was really amazing. It was kind of strange because to start with, you know, when we got to Bormio, everybody else had gone. So the only Olympians left in Bormio were the ski mountaineers. So it was, there was a moment where, for me personally, I was doing the job I normally do with the athletes I normally work with, talking to the officials, it was all kind of ski mountaineering and in a place that I had been before, except it was the Olympics. So it was this sort of weird kind of, I'm just here to do a job that I've done many, many times before, except with this huge sort of, don't make a mess of it.
Yeah.
And so there was a sort of, for me, it was sort of a weird kind of, trying to reconcile the two, where I was really excited to be there for the Olympics, but also sort of going, well, this is just what I do. Um, but I have spoken to people who have been involved in commentating and so on in their first Olympics, and I believe it's quite a usual sensation that, but it was amazing. Bormio is gorgeous. It's a really beautiful place. And I had an apartment that overlooked the field of play practically. So it was really
Wow.
fab. And it was lovely to see everybody. And for the very first time ever, Christine and I got to work together, because usually it's either Christine or me. So that was really fun. And I got to see all the people from the federation, the athletes, the coaches, athletes' parents, people that some I had met before, some I hadn't met before. And so it was just a really cool, it was a really fun vibe. And funny story, it was really snowy on the sprint day. And
Hmm.
I was getting sort of messages from people at HQ in Milan who were saying, oh, we've all been asked to reach out to the people, out on the limbs, if you like, to see whether they think there'll be any delays or so on. And I was like, no, the ski mountaineers will be absolutely delighted it's puking with
Yeah.
snow because that's what they love. That's what they're here for. And so it was great. I loved it. The atmosphere was just out of this world. The venue producer, so Christine and I were in a box right at the top of the grandstand, and with the venue, the show caller, effectively, who's juggling, the live stuff and the OBS and everything. And she said, "I've been here for 2 weeks with the Alpine fans, and they're nothing compared to the Skimo fans. It was
Oh, wow.
nuts. It was
Yeah.
crazy. And honestly, it got to a stage in the sprint race finals, where our whole booth was doing this, because it's just a big bunch of scaffolding, and we were all sort of going, who?" But
That's
they were
awesome.
amazing. They were absolutely outrageously loud. It was extraordinary.
Oh man, that's cool. Cam Smith said something similar, that he was surprised at, first of all, the level of noise, but also individual people's voices rang through in he and Anna, and I'm sure, many athletes in various languages were hearing their own fans, which is
Yeah,
incredible. And I experienced that as a TV viewer. It was just loud. I mean, the environment, it was sort of all encompassing. And for the listeners who are unfamiliar, I think, and I heard you a little bit, Catie. You and Christine, my understanding, your role was the live calling. You're doing the announcing, so the fans on the ground, you're kind of doing play by play, and it was a really neat mix. We could hear your voice in English, and then we could go to Christine's voice. I think she was doing just Italian,
yeah.
but it was this back and forth, and it was fun for me because I was watching on NBC, and I could here's the American callers, but then here and there I would hear your voice, or I could here's the camera on so and so, but you're talking about something else going on, and then again I would hear the Italian commentary, which I don't understand, but I could still hear it. It really made for a dynamic viewing experience. Was that your only job, or what? Tell us what else were you up to? I know you were doing the podium announcing, at the end, the medals, and I could only imagine how just emotional that must be for you. Like, these are a lot of these athletes. I mean, some of them you've known since they were kids. You've seen them go through the ranks. Now you're like announcing that they're getting an
Yeah.
Olympic medal. I mean, wow.
It was amazing. I mean, to answer the first part of the question, it was kind of strange. So we started 2 hours before the actual broadcast started,
Oh,
and
wow.
we
Okay.
had a full script of, we're just announcing "Hello, Bormio," and getting everybody sort of warmed up, and then we were introducing, sponsor spots and
Mm.
advertising and stuff like that, and then handing down to the MC who was in the audience, sort of um, doing a bit more face to face stuff. And then, so we did all that. And then we literally it was so bizarre because I'm used to working with a screen and Christine isn't, but because we were looking right at the field of play, but we were
Yeah,
working
yeah.
from a screen in front of us. So we're working to what you could see as well. And it was kind of strange to do that job, but be told exactly when to speak, exactly when to finish, exactly. We
Oh,
had a camera on us here. I don't know if you ever saw at any point out when you wouldn't have seen it because it was facing the wrong way, but there's a huge screen on facing the grandstand and another one on the side of the course. And occasionally they would pop us up. So we had a camera on us here, sort of looking at us.
yeah.
So we were not allowed to move our chairs from the spot that we were parked in. And that was kind of, again, adding to this quite high tension of it's just my job, but it's my job with bells on. Like, it was really like, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we'd have in our ear the show caller, the venue producer saying, English in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I've done a lot of that before for commentating, but a lot of the time I'm self-directed these days. So
Yeah.
it was took a little bit of a while to get used to, but
No kidding.
um, yeah, it was amazing. And it was super emotional. I mean, when Marianne Faton won the gold, I had to hand over to Christine because I was nearly crying
Hmm.
because she and I did as it turns out, I just interviewed her the other day in Verbier in person for something completely different. And it turns out that we had practically had our debut at the same time in Verbier at the World
Oh,
Championships
wow.
in 2015. And
Wow.
so, and I've known her for a long time, and it was super emotional.
Wow.
Um, yeah. And of course, and on a flip side, super emotional seeing, athletes that you kind of would hope would do well. Or, I mean, I hope they would all do well, but you know, sort of, it was Christine and I were like two extra mums in the stands because, as you say, we've
Yeah.
known all of these athletes for such a long time, and we would be going, "Oh no!" or
Yeah.
"Yes," really,
Yeah.
like living it properly, full on living it with every single one of them. So it was really, really special.
That's fantastic and neat to have that insight. I mean, in some ways, like your performance, you and Christine, it's an Olympic performance, just like these athletes have put in, over a decade of highly specific preparation. You've done that as well, and like you're in the spotlight, and you got that countdown in your ear, and you can only talk at certain times, and yes, you're emotionally involved, but the commentary probably has to be somewhat neutral. Of course, you're supporting everyone and
Yeah.
just calling what's happening. That's dynamic. The pressure's on, huh?
Yeah, and it was actually a big lesson that I took away from it because with the mixed relay, I mean, you saw it, it was just insanely exciting. It was ridiculously
Yeah,
exciting. But
yeah,
because we were, well, I personally, I can't speak for Christine. I mean, I was so invested in the whole thing that actually, when there was that whole um, Anna Alonso in the transition zone
yeah.
error and so on. We were
It was
just
confusing.
because, and I've just actually rewatched it for the first time, and because they put a slow mo of something else over when it was happening, and
Yes.
then we sort of looked at each other, going, "What just happened?" It was a really good lesson for me, actually, that no matter how invested I am, I have to retain a level of objectivity is not quite the right word, but just sort of
Hmm.
cooling my jets slightly because, when you're commentating for the TV, you cannot get as excited as we were in that booth. I mean, we were just absolutely, and I don't know if I didn't make this clear, but we couldn't actually hear the crowd. So we were feeding off
Mm,
each other. We could kind of hear them, but we were feeding off each other. And so
yeah,
for me, it was a lesson in just saying, right, okay, this is really exciting, but I still have to have a grasp of what's actually happening. And
yeah.
there's so much going on. And we had multiple screens in front of us. So we were trying to half look and then we're sort of peeking out over the screens to see what's happening on on the actual field of play. So there was a moment afterwards where I was like, yeah, next time if I'm ever invited back, I need to just take a breath.
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah,
interesting. This is reminding me the course in Bormio was set up so that the entire thing could be seen by any fan there. One
yeah,
camera, as you said, could show the whole course, and I think there's value to that. Like I've been watching. We'll get into some of the two World Cups that have happened since then. I've really liked the sprint and relay courses because it's almost like a mini adventure. They go off, they
yeah.
go around, and like you couldn't see it from one spot. It looks really cool on TV, and it's more of the race is still only 3 minutes for the sprint, but it looks like a backcountry adventure.
Mm.
Um, and that looks really cool. And, you're reminding me, hey, having it all right there, especially in a venue like the Olympics, maybe there's a value to that. So I don't know, something for
Yeah,
them to consider moving
yeah,
forward.
I have to say I agree because the European Championships course and the Val Martello course that we're going to get on to talk about, I mean, in my opinion, much more interesting from a kind of ruggedy point of view. But it was very cool to be able to see absolutely everything, and the crowd just loved it, really loved it.
Yeah. Nice. Listeners, if you're new to Skimo Gold here, if you haven't seen that Olympics mixed relay, go back and watch. And we're talking about a moment where the Spanish superstar Ana Alonso skied into a transition, and the setup was kind of it was different than usual, and more or less she accidentally transitioned in the wrong spot, on the wrong side of the line where you're supposed to do the transition, and then it created this scenario where it's something you rarely see. And especially the NBC announcers had no idea what was going to happen. Would there be a penalty? At a couple points, they said Spain might be disqualified or something like that. So,
Yeah,
for the live audience on NBC, it created a lot of drama because at that time the Americans were in fourth place. And it's like, oh my God, they might be third. And, anyway, go back and
yeah.
watch it. It made for great TV. Catie, I'm curious about after the Olympics. Tell us, what happens. I mean, I know you were kind of hanging with, again, these athletes are people, their families. Like, was everyone together? Was there a big party or something? And then moving on, how has the sort of landing been for you?
Well, so after the sprint race, well, we had this big gap in the sprint race between the quarters and the rest of it, which was a
Yeah.
little strange,
Hmm.
and quite kind of unusual for the athletes and so on. But it was nice because we sort of got out to see people, and I bumped into Marianne Faton's mum and dad, and I hadn't met them before, but I basically just introduced myself. And so it kind of, that was sort of the vibe. I'd met Emily Harrop's mum and dad at this. We had our own, Skimo had its own sort of special little opening ceremony in Bormio town centre the night before, 2 nights before, which was really lovely. So there was a very, I mean, you know what it's like. The Skimo family is a family, and so it was just really lovely to sort of see people and meet people that I'd heard of or been in contact with on Instagram and so on. But after the sprint race was done, there was a really huge vibe, I would say, without using too much of a kind of weird word, but um, uh, the referees, the federation, everybody was just going, wow, because it went so well, and
Yeah.
with the weather being so terrible. And as I said earlier, one of the few sports where that's actually not a terrible thing, that adds to it, that made it a bit more
Totally.
what we like as ski mountaineers. And so there was this really jubilant sensation of, yes, we've
Mm,
done it. We're off to a good start. And that day we'd had Kirsty Coventry there. We had delegations from, when I say we, there were, I mean, I didn't see any of these people, but there
yeah.
were delegations from Salt Lake City. There were people from all over coming to see. So they got to see this really well put together, successful race in some really challenging conditions. And so everybody was really chuffed with that. And then after the mixed relay, yeah, I mean, well, immediately after the sprint race, before I even got to see the referees and so on, like just the vibe outside, it was so cool seeing all these people that we've known for a really long time being interviewed, and just cameras and recorders in their faces just being interviewed, and each of them had their press attaché with them, and it was like suddenly, oh look, Skimo got all grown up and is here like on the big stage. So it was
Yeah.
really fun. And then the mixed relay, again, just everybody was so delighted. And there was another sort of thing in the square in Bormio, introducing not all of them, but some of the medal holders. And then there was a drinks party, and then there was just all sorts of amazing, just people just having an amazing time. So it was great. And in terms of the come down, well, I don't know how the athletes were, but I mean, they're all about 30 years younger than me, but I was absolutely exhausted. I was
Yeah.
properly exhausted afterwards. And it took me probably about a week to really come out of and you know what I was talking about earlier, that sort of weird vibe. Everybody I knew was so excited for me, and I was so grateful. And I had messages from all over the world saying, I can hear you on the telly,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was so nice. But it was
Yep.
just this weird, suddenly you're out of this super intense bubble back into the real world going, yeah, it was really good. But now what? So it
Yeah.
was, I mean, it sounds, kind of feel like it feels like I don't find, maybe I'm sounding a bit ungrateful. I don't mean it. It's just, it was so weird to come out of,
Yeah.
so weird to go in and so weird to come out the other end, just going, what just happened?
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
great.
Oh, good. I appreciate you sharing that, Katie. And I think that's definitely something I've experienced as an athlete. You know, you have this big event that you've worked hard for so long and you hit this high, and then you come back to reality and it's like, blah, now what?
Yeah.
And it can be hard. And I think, having talked with a few Olympians since then, that I think that's pretty common. And I think it's
Mm.
great that you share that because, again, you're not actually skiing out there, but it's the same kind of thing. Like we
Yeah,
said, you
fully
worked really
invested,
hard for it.
fully invested.
You had this high level performance, um, and then you come back and listeners, if you haven't seen it, check out a documentary called Weight of Gold. I don't know if you've seen that, Katie. It was Michael
No.
Phelps and other Olympians, and they're talking about this exact thing with the Olympics, with big athletic events, and big challenges that athletes can face,
Mm.
after the Olympics. And I think whether it's now a month later or in the following year or whatever, like this is something really to be mindful about as athletes, as coaches, as parents, as friends. It's a
Mm.
time where people need support, and that's true if you prepared well and things went to shit and you didn't have the performance that you want, and it could be true if you won the gold medal as well.
Yeah.
Either way, there can be challenges and greatness and gratitude, like you said. It's kind of all these things at once. So thanks
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sharing that. And that may
Yeah.
it makes me think, shortly after the Olympics, here we are, what was it, maybe 2 weeks later, if my math is right, is the Pierra Menta ski race.
Yeah.
4-day stage race. We had a few episodes on that. Listeners, check them out. They were super fun. Some previews, reflections, etc. Sort of the Tour de France of Skimo. You go from the Olympics, an all-out 3-minute effort. Now we're talking 4 days of skiing, 12 hours total for the female winners, and boom, the Olympians from France won. Katie, what'd you think about that? Emily Harrop and Margot Ravinel, going to the long end of racing and showing up and getting the W.
Yeah, and becoming the long distance world champions. It was
Yeah,
extraordinary. And funnily enough, I said a minute ago that I interviewed Marianne Faton a couple of weeks ago, or 10 days ago, in Verbier. She came to where I live to just sort of with their sponsors, and she did a
yeah.
day out with the local touring club, and then she very kindly sat and did an interview with me to the people in this place up in Verbier. One
Oh,
of the
cool.
things I said to her is, how is that possible, to do? Because she then went to the European Championships and obviously became the European sprint champion again, the mixed relay, but then was second in the individual.
Yep.
And I said, you know, and then Emily and Margot have just gone on to win the Pierra Menta. And she said, she looked at me and said, well, I mean, sprint training is excellent for long distance training.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay. And didn't seem to think it was any great deal at all. But it seems to be an extraordinary thing for me because, you know, sprint training, obviously, we all know that interval training helps with everything. But at the
Yeah.
same time, if you're not putting in the long, long hours, there's the ability to keep going at that level. So, I mean, Travis, you tell me, you have much more experience than I do in terms of how that is physiologically and psychologically possible, because I
Mm.
know that the French weren't at the European Championships, so they'd had like a little bit, you know, they didn't have that kind of interfering, if you like.
Yeah.
Um, whereas some of the athletes that were there were, you know, still quite reeling from the Olympics. But tell me, what do you think about this
Mm.
ability to do both?
Yeah, that's a good question, Katie. I mean, physiologically, in some ways, I think it's a little bit easier, especially because, all of these athletes that we're seeing in the Olympics doing the, short efforts of sort of 3 to 7 minutes. Pretty much all of them do have a significant endurance background. So they've done many of the individual races, they've done the longer things, they've done long. These are athletes who, for again, most of them over a decade in the summer, they've been doing long cycling training. Many of them have been doing, heavy volume in running, roller skiing, those kind of things. So even if, relatively recently, whether that's the weeks leading into the Olympics or for many of them, sort of last 2 or 3 years, shifting a focus, to short high end with more explosivity, more speed, they still have that endurance base in history. Um, so I think it's kind of there, and they also still have the skills, having done these long races, the skills for pacing, transitions, technical downhill skiing, etc. They have that background. So I think, if an athlete had only done sprint racing and then all of a sudden they try to
Mm,
jump to Pierra Menta, I think that would be tough. But most of these athletes, they've kind of been doing this for a while, and you look at maybe a sport like cycling, it's not that unusual, that maybe an athlete could be pretty good on the track in like a 4 minute race and in, a 1 day classic or something. Some of
mm.
the, physiology is the same. So, again, I wasn't super surprised with that. But as you said, the psychological side, I think, well, two things. On the one hand, it could be very hard just because you said, oh, the Olympics, it's just this huge thing, and many athletes, got out of that, and they're like, I'm done. I'm done skiing this year. And totally understandably, like it's so much to prepare for it and so much commotion and everything, it's full on for the whole time they're there. Many are done. They just want to be home and take a break. And that's
Yeah,
totally understandable. So that's one possibility. The other possibility, and I think maybe this is what we saw from Emily and Margot, is like, okay, I've been so into these 3 minute things that are so controlled, and like, God, if I mess up one little transition, I lose a place, or like I'm off, and we saw that happen to many athletes. Now I get to go to the Pierra Menta. Like, man, that is fun. I can have a little slip in a transition and I lose half a second and like whatever,
yeah,
I mean, it's still very close, but it's
yeah,
more free, it's expansive, it's more communal. The course, like, man, if anyone's ever been up there, you're on top of the world, and it is just awesome and technical, and it's the original romantic format of skimo. So
yeah,
I can imagine that if you're not super burned out from the Olympics, you can also be like, wow, and now I'm back to kind of what I like to do
yeah.
with freedom and fun and play. So I think we probably, I haven't talked to them, but I think that's probably what we saw coming through.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that quite a few of them are also going for the Patrouille des Glaciers, the PDG, that's
Yes.
coming up.
Hmm. Yep.
So it's that same sort of thing. There's like back to doing you know, a very different thing, but as you say, in the sort of classic format.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Mid-April, April 14th is the PDG sort of, kind of end of season sort of thing. Another classic race, a team race, an adventure, a point to point. This is like, of course it's hard, especially if you're racing, but it's fun and it's dynamic. Catie, who do you know know of who's doing that?
From the Olympic side of you, I know Maya Faton is doing it. She is doing it with Deborah Chiarello-Marti, who we also know from the Swiss team. And I can't remember the name of their third teammate, but I also know that Caroline Ulrich is doing it. She is an ambassador for the race for the Patrouille du Glacier, and I don't actually know who her teammates are, so now I'm feeling a bit bad. But non-Olympians, Rémi Bonnet and Aurélien Gay, have managed to rope Martin Antematten back in, and they are going to try and claim the record back from the Italians. And so that will be really exciting to see, because Martin Antematten is a former record holder, and he had it taken away by the Italians, Boscacci, Edelin, and Antonioli in 2018. So, but as you know, at the end of the season, especially, it's as much about the conditions as anything. So,
Yeah.
they brought it forward 2 weeks, thankfully, because it has been the last couple of times. It's just there's no snow left.
Yeah. All right.
So,
Wow. Well, something to look forward to. And
yeah.
listeners, check out next week. We will also have an interview with Marianne Faton, Olympic gold
great.
medalist in the sprint. Yeah, I haven't talked to her yet, so I may have to hit you up afterwards, Catie, to find the best questions asked. But I'm really looking forward to chatting with her. She seems like a great person, and
She is.
excited to have that conversation. Well, moving on. So the recent World Cup last weekend, it was in Val Martello, Italy. We didn't have often on the ISMF YouTube channel. There will be full race coverage. Catie is typically the announcer on that. This time we just had some short highlight reels for each of the races, which were the sprint and the mixed relay. I enjoyed watching the highlights. The courses looked really cool. I wish I could have seen the whole course. But like I said, the vibe I got was that it looked kind of like a mini adventure. There's some flatter parts, there's some steeper parts, there's a cool snowy boot pack. There was this kind of interesting little super steep staircase thing that went up to like a platform where they did a transition. And then the downhill was cool. It looked curvy. It looked like you were kind of, I don't know if it's a service road or something, but you're like next to a drainage, and the colors were neat, especially in the sprint race. A lot of the snow had melted off to the side, so it's this nice white and brown mixture. It looked pretty cool. There was it sounded like a number of downhill passes, which I think make it, when the course allows for downhill kind of competition, that kind of adds a fun element. So I enjoyed watching. Catie, what do you think about this? Have you been to Val Martello, and what do you think about that venue, and what were your reflections on it?
I have. I've been there a couple of times. It takes forever to get there. It's really absolutely tucked in the middle of nowhere, and it's at the biathlon center. So that's why you sort of see this
I
quite
thought that
flat
maybe,
start
yeah,
and finish.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's a biathlon center, and it is the most fun course, in my opinion, on the whole circuit. And what happens is for the mixed relay day, once everybody's in and has arrived, they shut the road, and they put snow over the road in two spots.
Wow.
And then they use the field on the other side from the biathlon center as the second uphill or the first uphill for the mixed relay. And it's just brilliant. It's so fun. And it creates this sort of, as you say, it's very rugged. It's much more technical. And the athletes love it. You saw perhaps Emily Harrop's interview afterwards. She's saying how much she loved the course. And it's really fun because it's very unusual. They go a long, long way before they hit the diamonds. And then they've got this really steep boot pack and drop off at the end. And it is a really, really, really fun course to watch. And I am sad they didn't do the streaming. I don't know why. I wasn't slated to be the commentator that weekend anyway. But no, it is a really, really fun course to be at.
Yeah. Oh, cool. That's good to hear. Yeah. And there were some good, this race and the previous World Cup in Azerbaijan had some really nice and challenging technical kick turns. And
Hmm.
that's a good, again, comparing sort of to the Olympics, where the Olympics courses might go. Those are cool. And it's, if you see these athletes doing a kick turn and someone slides a little bit or loses a half step, like it must be very hard because these people are they're the best in the world at this, and that's just a cool dynamic to include. So I liked watching. Go back, listeners, check it out again on the ISMF YouTube channel. They have some the highlight videos were well done and fun, and again, I love watching the whole race, but great to just see highlights if that's what's available. So let's hear those results. I can read them off, Katie, and then maybe see
Go
if
for it.
you had any surprises or anything. In the mixed relay, taking the win was Austria with Johanna Hemer and Paul Verbniak. They look good. It was a dynamic race. There was some back and forth. Italy was second place, Alba de Silvestro and Michele Boscacci. And third was Spain, Oriol Cardona Cole and Ana Alonso Rodriguez. And it was a exciting, even just the highlights. It sounded like a dynamic race.
Yeah, I think so. And from what I could see, I mean, the Austrians, I could not be more delighted for them. It has been a long time
Yes.
coming. More fourth places than you can shake a stick at.
Yeah.
And not only in fourth place, they've been on the podium before, but this was just, I was so thrilled because they have worked so, so hard. And I know they were both a bit disappointed with their Olympic performances. And I couldn't be more thrilled for them because it was, they were up against the Spaniards and the Italians and the Swiss, who we know are very strong. The Germans put in a good showing as well, and they just absolutely nailed it. And I'm thrilled for them, absolutely thrilled. Spain did cross the line second, but Ana Alonso had
Yes.
a 3-second penalty for doing something in transition. I think she was doing something with her skins and she already picked up her poles. So they
Yes.
slipped into third, which is an unfortunate way to lose a place on the podium. But again, delighted for the Italians, Michele Boscacci and Alberto Silvestro, because again, they're sort of sometimes just sitting just outside the podium. So really great to see them. I'm not sure. Do you know why the French weren't competing? Do you know?
No, I don't
I
know.
didn't.
Yeah, I mean, as I was watching, I sort of thought like just probably Pierra Menta.
Mm,
I did see that Thibaut Anselme was there in the sprint. He was mentioned briefly as something happened. I see he was in the semis. I don't know if there was a mistake or something, but yeah,
mm.
that would be my guess. Just one thing too many to do. So.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I thought it was brilliant. And as I say, it's just such a fun course. It's really fun and interesting. And yeah, you can't see it from one spot, but that's actually kind of makes it a bit more fun, in my opinion. But yeah, great race.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and then the sprint race kind of had that same vibe in terms of just an adventure. It had that same final downhill that looked pretty dynamic. Like you said, the start looked pretty cool because it's flat and the men and women are just flying. It would be interesting to know like what is their pace per mile or per kilometer running on that flat terrain. I would guess that it's quite fast. I would imagine well below
Mm.
6 minute pace per mile and maybe, around 5 minute pace, just speculating, but they're flying. And it was cool to see. So, the men's final, Oriol Cardona Cole got another win. He had a nice post race interview saying that he was glad to, come back after the Olympics. He said he didn't train that much. I imagine he's probably touring around, doing interviews, taking a break, whatever. So neat that his form was still there at the end of the season. Arno Lieta was second, and Nikita Filipov in third. Filipov continuing to go strong. They said he had a downhill pass yet again. So that's 2 World Cups in a row where he's passed at least one person on the final downhill. I find that exciting and interesting, and and it seems to be done safely. I don't know of any, or safe enough. I don't know of any crashes that have occurred. So that's been fun for me to see. Katie, any thoughts on those results from you?
Yeah, I mean, Oriel Cardona-Colliff, I don't know if you follow him on social media, but he's just basically spent a month being everywhere. They went to visit the King and Queen of Spain. They've been at
Oh,
fashion
wow.
shows, at football
Yeah.
matches, bringing the ball out for, I don't know whether it was Barcelona or whoever. They've just had, I think, he was the first Winter Olympic gold medalist for 54 years, I think, since 1972 or four, one or the other. And so, I think they've just been having a whirlwind of a time, just really. Um, and they weren't at he didn't, I don't think either of them were at the European Championships. So, yeah, I think that's what he was getting at. He's just been super busy all over the place, but thrilled that the Spanish people are so thrilled, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
Arno Lieta, great to see him on the podium because he just announced his retirement last week at the end
Hmm.
of this season, which is so sad because, I mean, it's incredible career and everything, but I kind of suspected that might be coming, which is partly why I was so sad that he just was outside the podium at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Just an absolute OG, a sprint specialist, and such a nice guy, and has made the sport better just by being amazing. And yeah, Nikita Filippov, who very kindly was the first person to let me hold their medal in Bormio. So
Awesome.
happy to see him doing there. I tell you who I wanted to just for us to keep an eye on is Luca Tommazzoni. That
Hmm.
he had his first top five, his first final in Boitaul earlier this year. No, sorry, yes, in Boitaul, and just looking really strong. Really, he sort of fell down the rankings a little bit towards the end, but he had a really strong race.
Yeah, and he's 24, it looks like, born in 2002. And yeah, if you watch that highlight, he was right in the mix and maybe even in the lead for just a moment there, kind of at the end of the diamonds. Um,
He was certainly up
Somewhere
near the top
close.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. But I had that thought watching that men's race. It just kind of, it was like, it seems like the level is just still going up. There's like all of these guys who, like, yes, Oriole wins again, but like, everyone was right there,
Mm.
and it's cool to see that keep going up and see new names coming in, and kind of all of a sudden this season, like, Filipov is there every race,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
that's neat to see. Um, Arno Lieta, Katie, have you heard anything? What does a guy like him do post Skimo career?
I don't know, but he's very involved, I believe, still in the family farm. So
Okay.
it could be that he's just going back to do that. He didn't say. He just said, "That's it. I'm done." And I think it's a dozen years or something, like 11 years on the team. And he
Yeah.
was world champion in his first year as a senior, aged just 20. So
Yeah.
he's had an amazing career.
Yeah. All right. Well, way to go, Arno. Hats off. Age. It looks like he's 28-ish.
Yeah,
Lot of life ahead, and be curious to
100%.
see. Um, cool. Well, on to the women's race. Here I am correcting myself. Emily Harrop was there. So yes, they didn't do the mixed relay, but Emily was there and she won in the sprint. Kind of as usual, followed by Julia Murata and Margot Ravinel. In a very close finish with Celia Pierra, who almost caught her at the line sprinting, followed by Tatiana Poller and Ana Alonso Rodriguez. So a lot of familiar names. Katie, anything that you gleaned from watching the highlights?
Well, just I mean, again, a really exciting race, and good to see Julia Murata up there at the top again. I was, it's a shame Celia just literally just right there again, but I imagine she'd probably be pretty pleased with that because I know that she was, like many athletes, very disappointed not to be selected for Bormio.
Hmm. Yep.
And so I imagine and she's just finished the Pierra Menta
Yes. Second place.
with Axel
Hmm.
Gachet-Mollaret.
Yep.
So yeah, I imagine that's probably both of those a big boost for her. coming into it. Yeah, no, I think that's there was something else I was gonna say, but it's slipped me. It's past that. If I
Yeah.
remember, I'll come back to
All right,
it.
cool. Yeah, and then thinking back again, that Pierra Menta followed by back to the short racing, Alba de Silvestro, I think was third in Pierra Menta, and then I think her husband and teammate Michele Boscacci, I think they were third on the men's side. Am I remembering
They
both
were
of those
third
correctly?
in the World Championships, but they were sixth overall because the two of the
Mm,
teams that were ahead of them were not a World Championship registered team, if that makes
mm,
sense.
yes.
So yeah,
Yep.
sixth overall, third in the World Championships ranking.
Yeah.
The women's top three were the same for both
Yep.
the race and the World Championships, but the men's was slightly different.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks for the clarification.
No
All right,
worries.
another cool race. Again, I hope that Val Martello. I would love to see more coverage of that next year. And Catie,
Mm.
in the past, have they done a vertical and or individual at that venue? Are those courses available?
No, they were supposed to have an individual race this weekend, but it was cancelled because there wasn't enough snow plus avalanche risk, which sounds like a oxymoron, but
Yeah.
contradiction in terms. But no, they cancelled the individual race. But I don't know if they've ever had a vertical, but they've definitely always had the other two for
Yep.
sure.
All righty. Well, cool. As we wrap up, quick preview of some races coming next. First of all, the Youth World Champs. By the time this podcast comes out, that will be either done or almost done. The dates of that are March 25th through 29th. So listeners, go online, search Youth World Champs, ISMF Skimo, and maybe check those results, see what happens. Catie, what do you know about this event? And I think you have a personal connection to what's going on there.
I do. My son is racing for Great Britain in the under 18 men's category. He's doing the individual and the vertical. And it's exciting. It's the first time they've ever created a separate world championships just for the youth categories. So I believe there's about 270 athletes in total on site in Puy-Saint-Vincent just now, and they are live streaming the individual race, which if
Mm,
you're listening to this has probably already happened, but you can go back and watch it,
yeah,
which is
check
we
it
don't
out.
normally
Yeah.
get to see that. My colleague Lisa is commentating that, so she is ready to rock and roll, and that should be really exciting. And it's a beautiful course. I was there last year with my son because they had the Youth World Cup there a year ago, and I did the recce with him on the individual course, and it's a cracker. It's all the things you would hope for. I mean, it's really close to the piste, so it's not a way out in the middle of nowhere, but it's really nice steeps, kick turns, ridges, sort of depends on the conditions, but some technical elements and really really fun. He's really excited. I've just spoken to him actually. He was out doing the recce this morning. He says it's great. So that's that. But alongside that is the Senior World Cup at the same time. But I think it's great that they separated the youth and the seniors in terms of the length of the events. It was just so much for everybody. But I do think it is really important for the youth athletes to see their senior peers
Mm,
competing and to see what that level looks like and the intensity and the speed and the ability and just sort of to sort of be there with their heroes, maybe that's too strong a word, but these are some of them are Olympians, some of them are world champions, some of
yeah.
them are, most of them are all amazing anyway. So I think it's a really good thing for the youth to be able to rub shoulders. And what's really lovely, what I've understood, even though they're only streaming the senior individual race, what they're doing with the opening ceremony is that they are putting the focus on the youth world championships, which
Oh,
means
cool.
that normally at an opening ceremony, they bring up the top five of the seniors, so the top five bibs. And in this particular case, the opening ceremony, which I think is actually tonight, they're bringing up the top five of the juniors just to sort
Awesome.
of put them to the front, which I think is a really nice
Yeah.
touch, actually.
Yeah. Oh, that's super cool. I remember talking back with Cam Smith when they did the World Cup at Solitude in Utah in December. He said, on the ground, there was that same vibe where there was a lot of interaction between just local youth skiers
Mm,
and the participants, and I think that's cool. That's magic. Like those are big moments for the younger skiers, and I would guess also for the senior elite athletes, like they probably love that change up as well.
yeah. Actually, talking of which, you might not know this. I'm not sure many people do, but when we did the rehearsal for the Olympics, we did a full rehearsal, not a full rehearsal,
Mm,
but quite a long couple of hours, making sure we had the timings right, that the cameras were right, that everybody knew what was happening.
yeah.
And in order to make it right, they put the local youth ski mountaineers up through the sprint
No.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were actually commentating, Christine and I, just for, the
Yeah.
practice and the getting everybody in the right place and the volume levels and everything.
Yeah.
And we didn't know they didn't have any graphics up for them. So we were just making up names. So we were just
Sure.
using,
Yeah.
there's like, and it was Italian, like decent Italian local youth racers. And we were saying, pretending that they're Max Rion or Cameron
Mm,
Smith or Emily
yeah.
Harrop, whoever. And it was a hoot. And they
Uh-huh.
got to actually properly race it as the warm up, as the
Yeah.
rehearsal.
Wow, that's cool. I'm glad that you shared that. That's fun and neat. And how cool for those kids and teenagers to get to run the Olympic course like as a race. Man, that's
And they got
awesome.
to do that. We practiced, we rehearsed all the medal ceremonies, so they got to walk in as if they were the winning athletes, go around, be brought up onto the podium so that we could practice all of our protocols and everything. So they actually got a full on feel for it. It was great.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and then a few final races to mention coming up. March 27th through 29th is the North American Skimo Championships in Kicking Horse, British Columbia. Recent guest Joe Demore from Colorado will be competing, in addition to another number of top American athletes, Canadian athletes. That's most of North America. I don't know if there are any Mexican athletes competing. I hope so, and it would be cool. So we'll be sure to give you an update on those results. March 28th is the Tour de Routour. Katie, any
Cool.
thoughts on that race? Do you know? Have you heard anything? Know who's competing? Anything like that?
I don't, I'm afraid. And I know it's a huge one. It's up there with the Pierra Menta, with the Metsalama, with all of
Yep.
these amazing things, but it's not actually one I'm hugely familiar with. But I think it's in the Aosta Valley and it's a huge deal. So no, I'll be excited to see who's there.
Yep. And then April 1st through 5th, another World Cup. Katie, give me the correct pronunciation. Viarsur alone, is that good to say it? I bet you can say
Vilar.
that better. Vilar.
It's
Okay.
known as Vilar
Vilar. There we
with
go.
a
Nice.
Vilar, yeah, and it's about an hour from where I live, and
Huh.
it was the home of the World Championships in 2019. It's also got some really great facilities, fabulous setup, and that's the finals, the World Cup finals for the season. And we're
Nice.
streaming the sprint and the mixed relay.
Okay. Cool. And will there also be a vertical and individual?
I believe so, yes,
Yeah.
but don't
Okay.
quote me on that.
Yeah.
I believe
All right.
so.
Yeah. And any thoughts on that? We've talked a little bit, or you and I have corresponded about, kind of unique. The Olympics, it changes things. It's like, here's if you're in the Olympics, that's probably the biggest thing, but there's also still the world championships, there's the points totals. What are your thoughts, Katie, in terms of, I don't know, who's doing what, who's targeting that final world championship, who's not? Do we have any compelling races for points? Anything coming to mind for you regarding that event?
Well, I mean, you mean the sort of the overall cup, season cup winners? You mean, is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or
Yeah.
or just, trying to win that big final, World Cup and
Yeah,
World
so
Championship
it's
event.
funny because I haven't actually looked at the rankings recently, but it must be very different to a normal year because,
Yeah.
you know, Max has finished for the year, Cam has finished for the year, people are doing some and not others. And because of lots of people not being at Solitude, and then we had was it Andorra's sprint was cancelled. So I think it last time I looked, it looked very different to how one would imagine it would look. So I think it's a funny old season for that, definitely. Sorry, I'm not being
Yeah.
very specific, but for me, it seems like it's a very different season.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. And I'm glad to hear that those full races will come again. That's April 1st through 5th. So viewers, be sure to check those out on the ISMF YouTube channel. And it'll be nice to kind of get a final round of your favorite athletes competing out there in the short races. And yeah, interesting to see and kind of neat, just to sort of speculate, like maybe someone doesn't make the Olympics, but they've just been super consistent in showing up to all the events. Maybe they come in with the points high enough to get to a great position.
Yeah.
Well, Catie, anything else before we wrap it up here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the only one to remember, of course, as you say, is the PDG
Yep.
in the middle of April. So I think it's the 17th that the elites go, but there are 2 starts for the long race, 2 starts for the short race. So it's a sort of a week of celebration of Skimo, and also perhaps lesser known, but there is a PDJ, a Patrouille de
Okay.
Jeunesse, which is the youth, and that happens around the Verbier ski resort on the Friday between the 2 races. And it's one of the greatest joys and jobs of my year, because I get to go live on site and see all these amazing racers from 6 to under 20s or under 18s, coming in. The kids get a day off school. The local shops give
Okay.
you discounts for kit. There's training sessions every week with the local Skimo club. It's a massive deal, and trying to get kids super involved. And it's always just such an absolute joy.
Oh, that is really cool to hear, Catie, because there's nothing like that in the United States. And what a neat thing to, who knows? Maybe if you're in the US and you're a parent or a kid, what a cool thing to be able to get over there for that sometime. Hmm. One final race to mention in my notes here, the Grand Elk Mountains Grand Traverse, March 29th. So again, when you hear this, go back and let's see what happens with the GT. This is one of the classic American races. Catie, you've probably heard of it. Midnight start in Crested Butte,
Ooh.
Colorado, over the mountains, over hill and dale,
Mm.
and finish in a little place called Aspen, Colorado. If you're Cam Smith or someone like that, you're doing it in about 6 hours. If you're, everyone else, you're trying to finish the next afternoon by 4 p.m., I believe, is the cutoff. So it is a massive journey, and I'm curious to see. We're at a low snow year. It is warm here. Things are melting quickly. It'll be interesting to see how things pan out and what they can do with the course. I've heard that there may be quite a bit of maybe you call it boot packing, maybe you just call it going for a run with your ski boots on. But there could be some of that mixed in. So hopefully it'll go off, and either way it'll be an adventure. So really, fingers crossed that the GT can and does happen. It was canceled last year, like at the last minute, like
Mm.
2 hours before the race, they had to
Oh,
cancel it because this crazy melting event happened, and just the snow was completely impassable and dangerous with slides and stuff. So anyway,
oh, that's
we
tough.
shall see the Elk Mountains Grand Traverse. And listeners, we have an episode just about that with the one and only Cam Smith and Doug from Cripple Creek Backcountry. If you want to know everything about the Grand Traverse, check out that one. Um, well, Catie, thanks a lot. Always great to catch up. Awesome to hear your Olympic experience. Good luck to your son out there in the Youth World Championships. Excited to hear how that goes, and it'll be great to chat with you next time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Can't wait.
Hey, folks, thanks as always for listening to Skimo Gold. You, the audience, make this happen. We appreciate you coming back. We appreciate you sharing these episodes with friends. If you're listening on the podcast player, hit that review button, leave a comment, even if it's very brief. Those really help us. And also, again, check out the YouTube. Give us some comments there. Let us know what you heard about the interview. Ask questions, recommend guests. As they say, slide into the DM on Instagram. I'm glad to hear from you if you have questions or recommendations, thoughts, feedback, the good, the bad, the ugly. Send it on over to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks as always to Palm Tree Pod Co. Excellent podcast production. If you are a podcast host or you're thinking about starting one, look those guys up. And thanks as always to our sponsor, Camp. Camp is made up of real mountain people creating real mountain product. I've been using their stuff for over 20 years in adventure racing, in skimo, in trail running, in hiking, backcountry adventures, whatever. They make good stuff. So please check out Camp. All right, folks, have a good one, and we will catch you next time on Skimo Gold.